Attention, please. Thank you for coming to our regular research seminar series. Today, we have a special series that we're going to be having our students who are going to be presenting their work, both orally and also as posters. So please, after the presentation, spend some time, of course, after presentation, question, answers, let's spend some time with the posters and giving our students some valuable feedback so that they are ready for the Pathway Symposium that's going to be taking place next month. So I will have Dr. Carson introduce the students. In the meantime, I'd like to remind you that our series is progressing very well, and we will be having a seminar next week on energy and environmental sustainability research at PVMU. Dr. Raghava Kumarapati from the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department, he will be our speaker there. We're having a couple of other seminars that are already scheduled for the following week, and after that, Dr. Alfred Parks is getting ready to give us some economic insights of some of the issues that we are dealing with. So stay tuned on that one. With that, I will welcome our student. I will invite Dr. Carson to take over from here.
Okay, so today is a special day. We get to hear from our students. And so we're using this seminar actually to work with our students on delivery of their speaking presentations, and then there are the poster presentations. And so won't take up too much time. They will introduce themselves, and they will give you their classification in their majors. And so um, ideally, this is what we like to do. So when you came in, you should have gotten the criteria, the judging form, right? And so all three of the students will do the speaking part. You will score each student on the criteria sheet that you have. And then at the end, you can ask questions, and then you can provide suggestions for them. It's always good to give them positive feedback and tell them ways that they can improve. And so while you're working on giving them the feedback, we'll have another set of students. After the speaking parts are done, they will go back to the posters, and then you will talk with some of the students that's doing posters. You don't have to look at all the posters, but choose two or three, listen to the students give their presentation, and then provide feedback. And so by that time, I think it'll be 11:50 or somewhere close to 12, and that'll end the session. Okay, fair enough? Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, give us a few minutes. They're going to get the focus.
So who's got the timer? That way I know. Okay. Greetings. So, let's see the work that I do, first I should tell you how this work came about. I'll give my signal over here in this. How's that? Better? Better. Good. Uh, this work was done. Who am I? Or where am I from? I am from my mother. My name is Roberto de Freitas, and I am originally from Panama. But I've been in the States, and I transferred. It's now 9 months in January from the University of Minnesota here. And this is where some of this work done initially. This was part of a master's thesis project that I did. And currently I'm here in the human sciences, doing marriage and family therapy, and going to finish my PhD work in education leadership is where I will finish. So, that being said, I study self-concept and psychosocial identity, and I study first-year students, first-year underrepresented students at a higher education institution, okay? Some of the terms used in this work: culture, identity crisis, involvement, mixed methods is coming up. So essentially I look at the campus ecology of these underrepresented students, keeping in mind that they're first-year students, and they come in with a number of different anxieties. And as a teaching assistant, I had a number of them in classes and was noticing a pattern about their esteem. So that kind of what drives my interest in finding out, are all the students? This is because it's a predominantly Eurocentric campus. And I wanted to find out if the underrepresented students were feeling the same type of anxiety and concern about their self-concept and self-esteem. The theoretical foundation for this work, and as it says here, why does self-concept and multicultural centers in higher education? The multicultural center is the place where, within the university campus, is referred to as a third space. So it's not in the classroom, it's outside of the classroom where we know 70% of the time is spent. It's outside of the classroom. So what is happening? What are they involved with? How are they then embracing their campus experience? So why does that even matter? What is the role of these centers, and how do they impact these students and their development? And my interest, again, is more of the psychosocial identity theory and development. And the involvement theory I use here is from Mr. Alston, who contends that for them to be involved, it has to be a physical commitment as well as an psychological commitment. Okay? So whatever programs it may be, some of them may do it in a fraternity, sorority, or create a program of their own. So the research questions then that I attempt to tackle, and at the core of this question is, what is the impact of these multicultural centers on these underrepresented students' experience in higher education? And what is the relationship between the multicultural centers and their experiences, right? So, and the other question I asked is what is the relationship between their sense of belonging and their diverse learning environment, keeping in mind that they're in a predominantly Eurocentric, also known as white campus, but not right there. The other theory I looked at to inform this work was the psychosocial theory. Some of you are familiar with Erik Erikson's work, who first spoke of being aware of the influence of culture on behavior. Right? And again, as I mentioned earlier, Austin theory of development, which includes involvement not only physical, but also psychological. This essentially informs a lot of the work that I do. So it says that behavior is a function. So behavior, the function of people interaction with their environment. So if we, social psychologists would look at and say, what's happening with the behavior? What behavior are they exhibiting on campus? So what informs it is how they're interacting with that environment, right? So that essentially is the campus ecology piece. Another piece that I looked at was also what else is involved. So as I mentioned earlier, see the physical, let me go back here. That one. Social, cultural, all these make up the total environment, right? Now, the cognitive resources is essentially talking about their brain computers and how do we process all that information that's happening within the environment. So their symbols, their buildings, their thought process, speech, action, emotional response, perception, even dreams. And if you're familiar with some of Freud's work, so dreams are a form of fulfillment. Okay? And this diagram is informed again by Dr. Welsing's work. So within the university setting, as undergrads, they have 7 learning and 7 developmental outcomes. My interest was more along the developmental piece and how that was informing not only the behavior, but how consistent it was with these developmental outcomes. So this is part of the qualitative piece that I also embedded within the self-esteem measure that I had initially. So I measured their self-esteem, and I embedded 3 qualitative questions to get at their development, and then linked it to how that tied to the university's development outcomes. So as an example, if the student narrative talked about something related to responsibility and accountability, and these are the definition under these development outcomes, right? So this is their narrative. I completed my assignment on time. I did a good job on tests, requirements for my classes. Okay? So 44% of these students were having this type of experience, right? So independence, interdependence, goal orientation, self-awareness, resilience, appreciation of difference, which speaks to cultural diversity, tolerance for ambiguity. So if you know, as first-year students, if it's not black and white, they're sometimes exhibit a confusion, to say the least. So they were talking about what they learned, how important it was, at least this particular student, to get out into the community to meet new people. Also, that you need to have an open mind, right? So here we're looking at cognitive flexibility, open mind to learn what they enjoyed, and what they disliked, and how to put up with many differences. Okay? So again, results give us some information on what they are experiencing and what they're not only learning about themselves. And the question I asked to get these responses on the developmental scale was, what did they learn about themselves? And with that, I got some of the responses, which, again, speaks to the university's, hopefully, development outcomes. By the time they graduate, they should have at least started to express some of these types of behavior, right? From appreciation, resilience, and being able to face difficulties. The self-esteem, I use the Rosenberg self-esteem scale to measure their self-esteem. This simply tells us about how the self-esteem under the umbrella of self-concept is informed, right? We have a strong belief in self, the self-image, the environmental influence, the information that they receive in early childhood, right? So if you are receiving information early on that, hey, you can accomplish things, you can achieve things, all those things begin to inform your self-esteem. So the research indicates that as first-year students coming into college, they have the lowest self-esteem. But this research, it did not show a low self-esteem. Sophomores have the next level, and seniors have the highest self-esteem, right? So you can see the logic in that they're just transitioning from high school to first year in college, where seniors, they were the so-called top dogs, and now they come and they are the low one on the totem pole, so to speak. Time. And these are some of the responses and scores. And one more thing. So they also self-identified with these particular pieces, what that slide indicates. So should I entertain questions? No? You want me to? Okay. Some of the discussion pieces, as I mentioned earlier, both mixed method work, where I use both quantitative and qualitative deal. The quantitative piece, again, was the Rosenberg scale, and then the qualitative questions to get at how they were not only identified themselves, as this other piece here, it showed. So here was simply, in my questionnaire, I had them self-identify because I wanted to get at what they were thinking or identifying as, if I wanted to look at social identity. Some of the recommendations, research needs to understand how the historical, cultural, social, and psychological factors exert independent and powerful influence on student outcomes. An example that supports this point of view is that of if you're familiar with Tinto's work, and the hypothesis that students' academic integration and social integration were highly correlated predictors of student attrition. So if you're doing any work with retention and trying to keep our students here, that would be a recommendation. So of course, the limitations with this work, it was done at a single university. I had like 70 participants that took place in this, and that could be expanded for future work. And I mentioned here suggested future research. What I may do to extend this is look at, say, now that I'm at an HBCU, and how then would that compare to this work here at a predominantly Eurocentric setting. And in conclusion, so students who were well integrated into the campus life at higher academic performance levels and were more likely to graduate, as opposed to students with poor social integration tended to have poor academic records and were less likely to persist to graduation. Okay? And those are some of the list of references. Feel free to applaud. Next. I'll let you fill that in.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dora Marin, and I'll be discussing an analysis of food security in Waller County. I work with Dr. Eswick and Dr. Bakamanume, and first off, I wanted to say sorry because I have a dry cough, and so I wanted to apologize in advance for that. So, first, I wanted to show where Waller County was located. It is located by Harris County. It's the backward 7. The reason why we wanted to do this research was because, show of hands, how many of us like to eat? Me too. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to go into some literature. So according to the Census Bureau, Waller County is 518 square miles and is home to 48,639 people. There has been evidence that suggests that there is food insecurity in Texas. As Wesley R. Dean and J.R. Sharkey mentioned in a study conducted in Central Texas, there was a decrease in the amount of fruit and vegetable intake based on location, as it was harder for access in rural areas as it was in urban areas. People in rural areas said the reason for not having the right food resources was because either it was too perishable or because they just couldn't afford to have a balanced meal. In food acquisition and shopping patterns amongst residents of low-income and low-access communities in South Carolina by Lizy, ETAL, shows that access to vehicles or public transportation actually increased the associated and was associated with greater access to healthy food choices, especially in low-income communities. The objectives of this research is to provide awareness to the public about food insecurity, analyze food sources by community areas in Waller County, and also identify food accessibility to healthy choices from 1 mile, 2.5, and 5 miles. Okay. So here I have maps from the Economic Resource Service, Economic Research Service, which is a division of the United States Department of Agriculture. And here they show, so here's a map of the United States. Our legend is low income, low access, which is in green. And so this is a problem all throughout the United States. So we wanted to zoom into Waller County, which is located here. And as you can tell, there is low income, low access in this area. where people have to go 1 to 10 miles to get food. And then at the bottom, the yellow portion, these people had access to a vehicle. And so we wanted to look deeper into this. Where were these shops, and how far did they have to go to get to those food sources? So we used a case study approach in order to obtain an in-depth appreciation for the issues surrounding access to nutritious food in the county. We used census tract level data from the U.S. 2010 census, and also we used Google Maps to find the coordinates of these food sources, and then later we used those coordinates and we put them into ArcMap to then generate where those actual food sources were located. And then we used a geoprocessing tool in ArcMap where we were able to see the buffers of 1, 2.5, and 5 miles distance. Okay. So this is what we found. This according to the U.S. Census, the majority of the population by race is 45% white, 19% African American, 23% Hispanic or Latino. The average Texas income, so out of the 14,698 total households in Waller County, 8,204 of them are below average. Using the coordinates, we see that 39.5% of the 39.5% of the food sources in Waller County are convenience stores. 30.2 are restaurants, and 15.6% are fast food. Keep in mind that being food secure, you have to have access to fresh produce and meat products. So having accessibility to processed foods does not qualify as being food secure. So this is a problem when we see that 39.5% are convenience stores. We use the U.S. Census data to see who had to commute to work, and so we assumed if you commute to work, you most likely have to commute or carpool to go to the grocery store. And so there was a 4% people walk, 11 carpool, and 4%, and there was 1% other. So that means that out of the 48,639 people, 1,945 people walk in Waller County. This is the actual map that was created through ArcMap, where we see the food sources. So if you take a look at this map, Waller County looks pretty much food secure. But again, as we've seen in our graph prior, 39.5% of them are convenience stores. So if you take the convenience stores, restaurants, fast food out, and you leave what is actually categorized as being food secure, the map looks like this. So this says that people who live in this area, they have to walk 5 or more miles to get to the nearest produce or grocery store. So as you can see, this is 1 mile, 2.5 is in pink, and 5 is in green. So recommendations. So the recommendations to address food security would be to have food policy, programs, and entrepreneur efforts to address this insecurity. At Prairie View A&M University, we actually started a food pantry called the Hilltop Reserve, where they give rations to students every week to help address these food insecurities. Not only that, but also the College of Agriculture and Human Sciences and the College of Business have joined together to create a farmers market, which has also been developed by the Corporate Agriculture Research Center and the Cooperative Extension, with the idea that Sorry. So, if everyone works together, we will be able to help address this food insecurity. The next step is to will include a survey of residency and analyze of the U.S. Census American Community Survey data to assess the effectiveness of these efforts in the community. These are some of my references. Any questions?
You don't see it? The mouse is on the. What is your presentation? Oh, desktop. Okay, okay. This mouse is. Yeah, yeah. You have to look here. Escape for this one. Okay. Look at this one. This is yours. Close this one. Okay. Close this. This was.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Opeyemi Ayombanjo. I'm a graduate student, Computer Information Systems, and I'm here to talk about a research that has been ongoing for a while about the impact of organic and amendment and application, the application rates to soil CO2 emissions. Oh, okay. I'm here to talk about let me just the impact of organic amendment and application rate to soil CO2 emission. And for the introduction, vegetated land surface plays an important role in determining the fate of carbon in the global carbon cycle. And soil acts as the source and the sink for CO2 emissions uptake, and it helps in the soil carbon sequestration. The rate of the change of soil CO2 emission and uptake can be different from different crops, and uptake can also be different with different organic amendments and application rates. So for this study, we used three different organic amendments, which is the chicken, the dairy manure, and the mill organite. So the study also studied the impact of different rates of the organic amendment and the application rate to the soil CO2 emission. The method we used 36 plots, which was developed to grow collard greens in 3 rows, and the growing season from 2017 to 2018 and 2018 to 2019. So I already said we had three types of organic amendments: the chicken manure, the dairy manure, and mill organites. They were applied to the plots randomly, and 9 plots were used for control. Each organic amendment was applied to 9 randomly selected plots at three different rates: 168, which is the half, and 336, the normal, and 672, the double rate. and they were nitrogen-based amendments. So we measured daily the CO2 flux for the first 2 weeks and every other day during the experiment. So the study area we used, if you are familiar with the farm, it's on the way to the greenhouse by the left. So these are the plots. The green is chicken manure, the blue is dairy manure, and the other color is mill organite. So we used a closed chamber based soil gas exchange system that typically consists of the chamber and a gas analyzer to measure to do the measurement. So on the left is a set of instruments used, the chamber, the laptop, and on the other side is the first week of application, and the other one is the growing stage of the collard greens. So these are the results we got for October 10, 2017. That was before the application of the organic amendment. And for the first till October, so we saw the changes, the stages started happening at October 31st and through the growing season to March 30, 2018. And then the second season was from November 28, 2018 to May 30, 2019. So this is the time series. Um, More emissions, just after the application, we had more emissions. The results showed higher soil CO2 for double rate, and it also showed higher peaks under wet soil conditions. That means when it was raining, we had more emissions than when the soil was just dry. And the this other one showed the different rates at which the amendments worked. So the first line, red, is for the chicken manure. The 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 other one, the purple one, is the dairy, and the melogonite is the third one. No, okay, the dairy is the third one, the melogonite is the second one, and the last one is the control plot. So we measured it like that, comparing the first season and the second season. So we discovered that the soil treated with chicken manure had the highest soil CO2 emissions, followed by the melogonite for all three rates. The soil treated with dairy manure had the lowest CO2 emission after control for all three rates. So in summary, monitoring the soil CO2 is important to understand the ecosystem and overall soil health, which helps to improve the leafy greens and other vegetables and crop production. And we also found out that the dairy manure is actually better than the other two treatments for carbon sequestration. And that's all.
All right. So, any questions? Any suggestions?
Use this if you need.
Oh, thank you. All y'all did really good. I think everybody just has to speak up a little louder because we can't hear you. For the presenter that did human sciences, I really appreciated that poster just because mental health is something that like isn't really talked about. Well, now it's like picking up. So I want to thank you for that poster. And I also had a question. So, with your research and your data, how would you help Black students at Prairie View or just HBCU students in general deal with traumas and PTSD and help with their anxieties?
So you're asking me how they're going to manage their anxiety?
That you did at the University of Minnesota. How how can you use that data to help our students here? Because trauma and PTSD and anxiety is something that a lot of our students deal with, and it's not widely talked about or even like have a light shed on it. So even just having your poster here in a primarily agriculture and science based, space is something that's really appreciated.
Well, thank you for that. The first piece would be to address where the source the anxiety is coming from. So that would obviously have to be some type of assessment and find out. So yeah, we could basically do something similar here that would kind of get at, because the Rosenberg self-esteem scale also can be used to measure depression, right? So if we understand post-traumatic stress disorder or even slave syndrome, we can get some idea as to what's informing that anxiety. So yes, that's can be added to future work.
Okay, thank you for your presentations. There was some good information there. To our the students who are our undergraduates doing the research in ag, just a few comments. First of all, relax. Okay, you seem uptight to me. You shouldn't be. You're the experts in the room. Nobody knows your information more than you do, so you should feel that. Second, see if I don't know what the setup is at Pathways, but if it is, if it has a lavalier mic, that would be better for you probably than standing behind a podium. Seems like seems like you're stuck back there. Okay, so try to move around a little bit. Just I would say relax. Third, less is more. So if you can take the information that you have and focus on those things. How long is the presentation? 15 minutes? 12 minutes. 3 minutes for questions. So try to focus on those key things that you want to focus on. And Dora, I liked how you made contact with the audience to try to break the ice a little bit by asking about food. I think that's a good thing. But again, I would say again, relax, be confident in what the information that you have, and don't worry about the questions that'll come. They're going to come anyway, whether you're nervous or not. But be confident in what you have, and you have some good information. You have good data. Just make sure everybody knows that it's good work. So those are my comments.
Again, I'll echo the comments that were made. I want to thank you all for the presentations. And Roberto, in your case, you have some really interesting information, all of you, but you have interesting information, but you didn't manage your time very well. And so we really didn't get to hear the meat of what you had to say. So I kind of have two questions for you. Is this research for a master's work or doctoral work? Oh, all right. So, and then, and I may have missed it. Obviously, you did this at a predominantly white university, but and you spoke about future work and the opportunity to do this here at Prairie View, but minority students also attend predominantly white universities. So did you look at the self-esteem among the student populations in terms of the different ethnicities?
Yes, so those students that were involved in this survey were all, or predominantly, I shouldn't say all, underrepresented.
So it was
Cultural
underrepresented students. So I
Yes.
probably missed that.
And as you saw on the scale, when I had them self-identify, so there wasn't any box to check, the white, green, however you identify, they had to write it in. So that in itself is another whole piece of interesting data that can be used, how they self-identified within that setting.
Well, thanks. And you also said that, freshmen have the lowest self-esteem
Right.
and so on and so forth. Does home environment have anything to do with that?
So for this particular group, there was no issue with their, as far as the measurement says, with their self-esteem. So they had moderate to high self-esteem. Okay? And I looked at a specific space that they were using. So the cultural centers are located in, like how we have the MSC here. Well, there's an MSC there, but it's not obviously called MSC. And that's where all the cultural centers are, and that's where a lot of them gathered. So they have the like Black Student Union, Asian student culture centers, the Native American, Indigenous students culture centers. So all those centers I surveyed. So it's many of them that were able or willing to participate in it.
Okay, so if anybody else have questions, they'll be here on the stage and you can talk to them. So I'd like to transition to working with the students with the posters. So if the students that have posters can go by their poster and start presenting to anyone that comes by, give them about 10 or 15 minutes to talk with them about what they have on their poster and how they can improve. I appreciate you guys. Appreciate your help. Thank you. The criteria sheets the judging sheets, if you can share that with the students, that would be great.